Dreams begin with a spark, a vision, a late-night idea that grows into a plan, and sometimes a leap of faith. For many, the journey to entrepreneurship is one paved not only with hope but with risk, and often that risk means borrowing against the future. When I took a loan to start my dream business, I believed, with every ounce of conviction, that I was building more than a company. I was building a future for myself and perhaps rewriting my family's story. But things didn't go as planned. This is the story of how my dream venture failed, what I learned, and why, even in failure, there are lessons worth sharing. It started, like so many dreams do, with a problem I wanted to solve. I saw a gap in the market, a need unmet, a community I wanted to serve. I scribbled ideas on napkins and filled notebooks with business models, sketching out costs, envisioning revenue, imagining my brand's name on storefronts. I'd read the stories. Entrepreneurs who took bold risks and built empires from nothing. I thought, why not me? The initial excitement was intoxicating. I researched, drew up projections, and crafted a business plan that grew more solid with each draft. But as is often the case, opportunity requires resources, and resources, for me, meant taking out a loan. I weighed the risks, but the numbers looked doable. I convinced myself that with hard work and a little luck, I could make it work. Securing the loan was both exhilarating and terrifying. I remember the day the bank approved my application. It felt as though the world was giving me a vote of confidence. I signed the papers, understanding what was at stake but confident I'd meet the challenge. With those funds, I leased a space, bought equipment, hired my first employees, invested in marketing, and stocked up on inventory. Every purchase felt like laying another brick in the foundation of my dream. The first weeks were frenetic. There was a constant rush of responsibilities. Decisions to be made, problems to solve, customers to attract. There was so much to learn, and every day demanded new solutions and tested my resolve. There were thrilling moments, the first sale, the positive customer reviews, the sense of community starting to grow, but soon reality crept in. Sales didn't match my optimistic projections. Marketing strategies that worked in theory didn't produce the results I'd hoped for. Overhead costs, rent, utilities, salaries, were relentless, and the runway I'd counted on began shrinking faster than I'd anticipated. Every entrepreneur talks about the importance of resilience, of not giving up when things get tough, and so I doubled down. I worked longer hours. I pivoted my product offerings, tried new promotions, sought advice from seasoned mentors. I stretched the loan as far as possible, hoping for a break, for something to click. But sometimes, no matter how hard you push, the pieces just don't come together. The market didn't shift. My customer base stayed flat. The debts, once manageable, began to loom. I started feeling the weight of obligation to my lenders, my employees, my family, and myself. Sleep became elusive. My confidence eroded, replaced by anxiety. There's a moment, a day, an hour, when you realize survival isn't about pushing harder. It's about facing facts. For me, that moment came quietly, late at night, as I reviewed another month's losses. What was left of the loan simply wouldn't take me any further. The numbers were clear. To go on would mean deeper debt, inescapable obligations, and risking far more than money. Deciding to close the business was the hardest call I've ever made. It felt like surrendering not just my plans, but my identity. All the hours, all the hopes, all the believing. It seemed to collapse in that one decision. I dreaded the conversations that followed. Telling my employees, explaining to customers, informing the bank. It was humbling in ways I can't describe. Admitting failure, especially when you'd staked your reputation and future on success, stings deeply. Yet, as the dust began to settle, I started to see the experience with new eyes. There was grief, of course, but also relief, and, unexpectedly, pride. I had tried. I had dared to step into the arena, to risk stability and comfort for the chance at something greater. I learned lessons I could never have gained from books or secondhand stories. Somewhere amid the disappointment, I found powerful truths. Taking out a loan demanded responsibility, understanding the risk, making smart choices, having a solid plan for repayment. Yes, I'd failed to build a sustainable business, but I learned firsthand about managing money, about reading markets, about how vital adaptability is. I learned humility too. The ability to ask for help, admit mistakes, and accept things beyond my control. Looking back, I see the pitfalls more clearly. Maybe I underestimated the competition, or misjudged how much capital I'd truly need. Maybe I should have started smaller, tested the waters with less risk. Perhaps I clung too tightly to my original vision and didn't pivot soon enough. These are lessons I carry, not as badges of shame, but as tools for whatever comes next. The loan, of course, didn't disappear. I still had obligations, and repaying the debt after closing the business was sobering. It meant adjusting my lifestyle, budgeting carefully, and occasionally picking up extra work. But piece by piece, I honored those commitments. The weight lifted, slowly but surely, as I worked through what remained. Talking openly about failure is difficult in a world that celebrates only victory. Yet so many of the entrepreneurs and leaders I admire most have been marked by loss, by dreams that didn't pan out the first or fifth time. What matters isn't the absence of failure, but what you do with what's left when failure arrives. For me, the answer was to regroup, reflect, and begin eventually to dream new dreams. I share this story now not to discourage, but to illuminate the road as honestly as I can. Taking a loan to start a business is bold and brave, but it's not a guarantee. Success and security don't happen by wishing. They come from hard work, learning from mistakes, adapting quickly, and sometimes accepting when it's time to let go. If you are standing where I stood, facing your own leap into the unknown, know that you may stumble, and it will hurt. But also know that resilience isn't just about persisting with one plan. It's about growing through the experience, honoring your commitments, and moving forward wiser and stronger. Because, in the end, failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the journey. Dreams that don't come true still leave you changed for the better, and there is always hope for what comes next.